something like that in the pot, and then they send that to the bottom. And then things like crabs and lobsters that are agile enough can actually crawl in there, and they go after the bait, and then they get in, but they can't get out, and then you pull up the pot, and you have what you want. So this is a really good method of fishing because the bycatch issues for this are really, really low. And if you do get any bycatch in there, then the things are typically still alive when you bring it back up to the surface, and they can be tossed back and they'll be fine. Okay, so pots is actually a good method of fishing in terms of bycatch and stuff. So very, very good. Another method of fishing is long lining. So this is exactly what it sounds like. It's a long line that has thousands of baited hooks on it. So they'll take and they'll toss this line overboard that has all these hooks. And it'll either be used for pelagic fish or for benthic fish. If it's for pelagic fish, they'll have kind of buoys on there to keep the line up in the water. If it's for benthic fish, they'll weight it so that it sinks to the bottom. And the fish go after the bait that's on the hook, and then they get the hook in their mouth and they're caught. The problem is you have very, very high bycatch with this method of fishing. So what happens is there's fish that are caught on these hooks, and other animals go after those fish, and then they get caught on the hooks as well. Or the line, they can't see it, and so they'll get entangled in that line and they'll drown and die. So you get all sorts of like birds and turtles and mammals that are caught in these lines for long lines. Purse seining. So you guys remember the end of Finding Nemo, where it's like Nemo's like saving the school of fish, and he goes into the net and he's like, swim down, right? And he gets all the fish to swim down. Okay, that's called purse seining. It's used for schooling fish. What they do is they will take this net and they will drive in a circle around the school of fish, and then the bottom of the net is like a drawstring, and so they'll close the bottom of the net and then pull up that whole school of fish. The problem is you do get quite a bit of bycatch with this method because you get all sorts of things that are eating these types of fish, because they're typically bait fish, so they tend to serve as a food source for lots of animals. So you get lots of like fish and mammals that would normally feed on them caught in these nets as well. All right, gill nets. So gill nets are just basically nets that have like buoys on the top and weights on the bottom to keep the net open. And then the holes in the net are big enough for fish to kind of like swim into the net and get their head caught, but not big enough for the fish to swim all the way through. And then if they try and like back out, their gill covers, the operculum, get caught on the net and they can't get out. So that's why it's called a gill net. They get caught by their gills. The problem is, this method of fishing, nothing can see the net, so you get tons and tons and tons of animals that get caught in these. All sorts of turtles and mammals and birds would also get caught in here. And actually, you had such high bycatch with this method of fishing that it's now banned, because there's just so many animals that were being killed by this method of fishing. So now, gill netting is illegal, so you can't use it. Trawling and dredging. So, trawling is fishing for fish at a depth, and dredging is going to be on the bottom. And it's basically a big square net that gets dragged either at a depth or along the bottom, and whatever's in front of that net makes it into the back of the net and then gets pulled up. The bycatch with this type of fishing is also very high, because anything that's in the way gets into the net. And if you're dredging, pulling that net along the bottom, you're going to have lots of bottom habitats that are destroyed, like we were talking about with the deep sea corals. So it can be a very destructive method of fishing as well. If you keep going back and forth over the same spot, you're going to get lots of damage in that habitat as well. harpooning. So, harpooning is basically a spear attached to a line, and they use harpoons to catch bigger animals, so like the bluefin tuna and some of the bigger like fish, like swordfish and stuff like that. And then also for things like whales. Harpooning is a pretty good method of fishing because unless you're a really bad aim, you get no bycatch. So you shouldn't have any bycatch with this method. And this is what it looks like. So they've typically got a prow that has like a spot for a person to stand on to harpoon the fish. Alright, ghost fishing. Ghost fishing occurs when nets or gear are lost and they continue to fish. So either like they get cut off of their buoys that hold them in place or their anchors, or the person forgets where they dropped the net, they can't find it, and so that net is lost. What happens is, even though there's no person checking that lost gear, it still goes on fishing. So stuff still gets caught in that lost gear, and things still die. So you get all sorts of things that will be caught in these lost and drifting nets. You get things like dolphins and turtles and all sorts of birds, as well as fish that will be in the nets. Ghost fishing can also get caught like on reefs and kill all sorts of reef animals as well. And it is a huge problem. We get thousands and thousands and thousands of animals that die every year from lost gear. And really the only thing that we can do to like stop it is like remove any gear that we find. This picture on the left here is a beach where you've had like just a ton of this ghost fishing or lost gear wash up. And if you're interested in this, here's a website for you to go so you can actually look and see kinds of things that are being found. Okay, bycatch fixes. So how do we reduce the amount of bycatch that we find? The National Marine Fisheries Service has an observer